Good morning to the members of the MAG Regional Council. This meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda, informational items, or items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you'd like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak electronic form. MAG can assist you with any questions you have. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table in the hallway. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Regional Council, I will go down the list of members alphabetically. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. Mayor Beck, Mayor Bien-Wilner, President Burnett, Mayor Crane, Mayor Crane, Ms. Daniels, Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Gallego.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Giles. Supervisor Goodman.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Present.
Thank you. President Javier.
Here.
Thank you. Nocio.
Here, and so is my cat. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Mayor LaVault.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Governor Roe Lewis. Mr. Meck. Mayor Molina.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Morris.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Osborne. Mayor Osborne.
I'm present.
Thank you. Mayor Ortega.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Pizzillo.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Rodriguez.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf.
Present.
Thank you. Supervisor Sellers.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Sykes.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Walter. Mayor Wires. Mayor Weiss. Mayor Wheatley.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Woods.
Here.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you. Item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I want to take a moment to recognize the loss of a very important member of our community, Thelda Williams, who served as a member of this body. She served as interim mayor of the city of Phoenix, a record-setting 3 times when we needed to call on someone to bring us all together between mayoral transitions. It was so often we would call on Thelda Williams. She was a great advocate for transportation, including leading our Valley Metro organization and being a strong partner on the aviation side, serving on regional aviation boards as well. We have a stronger transportation system thanks to her and just a beloved member of our community. So I wanted to take a brief moment to celebrate her. Our next item is call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of MAG. Informational items or items on the agenda for discussion, but not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience. Do we have any cards?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do not have any members of the public that wish to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4, informational items. Items 4A through 4C are for information only. Does any member of the committee have questions or request a presentation on any of those items? Hearing none, moving on to item number 5 on the consent agenda. Items 5A through 5K are the consent agenda. These are items for action. Does any member of the committee have questions or request presentation on any of these items? Hearing none, prior to the approval of the consent agenda, members of the public can provide comments. Do we have any requests?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do not.
Have we received any online written comments for the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did receive one online written comment for the call to the audience that has been provided to the members and will be included in the formal minutes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve consent items 5A through 5K?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Harkey and a second from Mayor Woods. We will have those participating in the meeting online now take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on the camera, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Madam Chair, Ms. Daniels, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Sykes, how do you vote? Mayor Molina, how do you vote? Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Item number 6 is update on active safety and automated vehicle technologies. Mr. Zerker, can you please introduce item number 6? This is on the agenda for information and discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you remember, as Chair and as the Regional Council, when we sunset the the Economic Development Committee, you asked that we continue, though, to incorporate economic development items of interest to the region at the Regional Council. This is one of those items which has to do with a significant area of economic development activity in the region, in the MAG region, and many of you sit on GPEC, and you know this as well from your role in GPEC, and that is automated vehicle technology. I know we have some communities that are very actively involved in this. So we do have some staff here to present, Chairwoman Gallego, and that will be Vladimir Lipschitz, who is our Director of Transportation Technologies, and he has a guest with him that he will introduce. So, Mayor, if you'd like, we'll make the presentation. I know there are others who have comments, but we're ready to present as you'd like.
Fabulous. It's very exciting for us. We are the largest autonomous vehicle zone in the world. So a real point of pride for the MAG region. And in particular, Chandler hit a lot of firsts for our country. And then the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community and President Javier are leaders for tribal nations nationally as well. So it is wonderful to have really such exceptional leaders with us on this topic, and I'll turn to them if they have comments later, but first we'll begin with the prepared presentation.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you, Mayor Gallego, Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council. I am very pleased to introduce our next presenter, Dr. Jeff Wishart. We collaborated with Dr. Wishart for many years. I'm always impressed by the depth and breadth of his expertise. Jeff is a fellow, as you can see, at Science Foundation, Arizona. He also teaches at the Arizona State University, and notably, he's chair of a task force at SAE, which is a major standardization body in the industry in the United States and has a long history. So with that, with no further ado, Jeff, please podium you.
Thank you, Vladimir, for the kind words of introduction. Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council, I'm excited to talk to you about some the really exciting areas of development in the automotive industry that impacts our region and elsewhere. So not just driving automation, but I'm also going to focus on active safety as well. So here's my overview of my presentation. I'm going to start with some definitions to define and distinguish between active safety and driving automation. I'll discuss deployment, some of the impacts to safety that we've seen so far, as well as regulation for both of these types of technologies, and then discuss issues and future needs for both. So you may have heard of ACES, which is one of the acronyms that we're looking at in the automotive industry. But they've added a second S on safety. It's because safety, with 42,000 people dying on our roads in 2022, and the trend not getting much better and not comparing favorably to our peer countries, that S is really deemed necessary. So I'm going to focus on both safety and automation in this talk, and talk about some of the technologies that the automotive community is developing to help improve things. So we can really put these safety features into two categories. So we've got active safety. These are features that aid or supervise the human driver who's always in control and driving, and they operate or intervene intermittently when necessary for some sort of safety-related reason. So you may have seen these features on some of your cars. If you bought a car recently, blind spot warning, lane departure warning, forward collision warning, and automatic emergency braking. So there are warnings and some interventions. Then you've got driving automation. This is where features that perform all or part of what's called the dynamic driving task, DDT, on a sustained basis. So there's a difference between the two, the intermittency versus sustained operation. In this case, the human driver is supervising the driving automation system or feature for levels 1 and 2, and not for levels 3 to 5. There's some nuance with level 3 that we can get into if desired. So let's look at what we're seeing on active safety feature deployment. These are quite common depending on the technology, ranging from rear camera all the way down to adaptive cruise control lane steering. You can see from 2021 at about 50% rear camera up to 70%, and then going down from there. But these technologies tend to come in at more expensive vehicles and then trickle down as the technologies improve and they become cheaper. So, and one of the issues here is fleet turnover. People are holding onto their vehicles up to 12 years at a time. So now we're seeing these features. It takes a little bit of time for them to trickle into the market, but they are coming in greater numbers. The safety impacts of active safety features are proven to a certain extent. In one study in 2022, they showed that forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking actually reduced front to rear collisions, which is a very common type of collision, by 50%. The insurance company did a study, and they saw that bodily injury could be reduced by 27% and property damage by 90%. So fewer collisions, but also less severe collisions as well. There has been some regulation of active safety features. The rear camera is required now in light duty vehicles, very helpful, especially with young children and pets. And automatic emergency braking and electronic stability control are proposed for light duty vehicles, and fingers crossed that these become regulated and required for all our vehicles. The US DOT New Car Assessment Program, or NCAP, currently tests some of these features and gives a star rating. You may have seen with the crash ratings. So there's a similar rating system for these, with a proposal to add more. And my strong hope is that happens as well. But for those tests, we need to have common metrics are needed. And my research group is helping to establish some of these metrics. But one of the issues with these technologies is that users are not given a lot of training. They don't necessarily understand the limitations and capabilities of these features. And even worse, they might find them a nuisance. If it's a warning or beeping, they might turn them off, and then you don't get all the advantages and benefits of these safety technologies. So that's a real problem. And hopefully the automakers are figuring that out. All right, so now the dreaded SAE automation levels. So this is a chart that kind of gives a good picture of what we mean by these levels, ranging from level 0, which is nothing is on a sustained basis, but they can include active safety, all the way up to level 5, where it could drive anywhere that a human could drive with the driving automation system doing the entire drive. So most of the vehicles on the road you'll see today are SAE level 2. Although SAE level 1, that's adaptive cruise control. But if you think of Tesla and their full self-drive and autopilot, GM with their Super Cruise, Ford with their Blue Cruise, we're talking about SAE level 2. The driver is always in control of the vehicle, even though the driving automation system might be very sophisticated, it might be able to do a lot of things, the driver is always in control. And so that's why the difference between the blue and the green here on the levels. Level 4, the Waymos and Cruise, the robo-taxis of the world, that's where the driving automation system is in control. There can be a human driver there, but a human driver is not necessary at any time. So these are in limited, what's called operational design domain, but this is where the Waymos and Cruises reside. On the regulation side of driving automation, there is no federal regulation beyond federal motor vehicle safety standards, which are any vehicle on the road has to pass these standards. So nothing different for driving automation vehicles. But there's also a standing general order that came in July of 2021 that requires reporting of any collisions with these vehicles. So we'll get into some of the statistics in a moment. But I just want to highlight that those are the 2 federal regulations, and we don't have anything beyond that at the moment. On the state side, there are quite a few differences. You can see from this map that some of the states have some regulations, some have not put in any regulation at all, and there's a real mishmash. And the automakers, this is not ideal for the public or the automakers themselves. So hopefully we get a federal regulation so that we can avoid this mismatch. I want to highlight a couple of companies that are operating driving automation vehicles in the greater Phoenix region, starting with Waymo. Waymo and Cruise have been vying for robotaxi leader. I think Waymo is now the clear robotaxi globally. You can see that they've got 20 million miles of public road testing, 1 million miles of rider-only testing. These numbers are a little bit older, but and then 20 billion miles of simulation. So they do a lot more testing and simulation because it's safer. As Chairman Gallego said, we've got the world's largest deployment of automated vehicles of a robotaxi service. They recently expanded to 225 square miles, and they have over 300 vehicles in the Phoenix region. They also have deployments in LA and San Francisco. May Mobility is operating a system in Sun City. Now, this isn't a driverless deployment, but it's working with the 55 plus community there. And it's an on-demand public transit service. They're trying to add to public transit. So they stop at make 15.
We have future Chairman Sellers, Supervisor Sellers has a question.
Yeah, recently, and I think in San Francisco, Cruise had some issues. Can you elaborate on that a little bit and tell us what happened?
Sure. They've had, Waymo and Cruise have both had issues throughout the deployments. Cruise has had more that have been reported and probably more that occurred. The latest one, so California revoked Cruise's permit to operate in the state due to a couple of things. Most prominently, there was a pedestrian collision where a pedestrian got hit by another vehicle. Cruise then hit this pedestrian, and the pedestrian was trapped underneath the vehicle. And then Cruise the vehicle decided to pull over to the side for what's called a minimal risk condition, but dragged the pedestrian 20 feet. And then they weren't forthcoming with their in what they provided to the California DMV, and so the DMV revoked their permit. And then Cruise decided to stand down their entire fleet of vehicles. Yeah, no problem. So May Mobility operating in Sun City, I think it's really interesting service for the community. So some of the safety impacts, let's talk about those. They are still unclear, unfortunately. The level 2 features, as I described, the autopilot, full self-driving, Super Cruise, Blue Cruise, have varying capabilities of what's called object event and detection response. This means that you could they range from just being able to keep you in a lane and behind the vehicle in front of you, all the way up to being able to navigate a traffic signal. So they are widely varying, but they are becoming ubiquitous. They reached 70% of sales in 2022. The robotaxi services, it's unclear about their overall safety impacts, but there are some white papers that have given some indication that the impact is positive. But I'd like to see these be peer reviewed and actually have a better understanding. So I promised I'd show you some statistics. So from that standard general order, these are from the NHTSA website. There were 1,150 level 2 driving automation feature collisions from July 21st to October 16th July of 2021 to October 16th of 2023. And then 463 ADS related collisions. So quite a few there, as you'd expect, there'd be more on the level 2 than ADS. But in AZ, that's flipped. We had 25 level 2 and 68 ADS impacts, collisions in that time frame. So we have a higher percentage of the ADS vehicles here. So that's kind of expected. So in the end, it's really difficult to determine the safety impacts of especially the robotaxi services. They're low vehicle miles traveled, even though Waymo has done quite a few. Compared to the human driver, this is low, and we don't actually get their collisions per vehicle miles traveled. For comparison, the average human driver has a fatality every 100 million miles. So if you look at Cruise or Waymo that's done 20 million miles, we're nowhere near that, and that's for their entire fleet. There are different operating conditions. For a while in San Francisco, for example, they were restricted from driving from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So a lot of those miles were done in different conditions than what humans drive. And a lot of times they are not operating on highways. So we can't really make a one-to-one comparison with human drivers yet. There are unknown circumstances. The SGO, Standing General Order, requires reporting, but the details, we don't get all of the details, and sometimes some of those circumstances are missing. Some of those collisions are unreported, especially on the level 2 driving automation, because the vehicles are in the hands of the public and not the companies that are operating them. So we don't necessarily get all the collisions to be reported. And then finally, we only get really collisions and a little bit from the reporting of the collision. We don't get other data that like a near miss or a traffic law violation. So it'd be great to get a lot more data to understand how their kind of comprehensive impact to safety is. The real question is, we need to answer how safe is safe enough. Do we compare it against the average human, or do we compare it against the best human that has 10 times better performance in terms of miles per traveled per fatality? And also, if we reduce the number of total fatalities, but we increase the number of, say, pedestrian fatalities, would that be a good thing? So how safe is safe enough is a really big question, requires stakeholders from across the community to get together and make that decision. So I'll finish with some key points. The nomenclature usage is inconsistent. So you may become confused from the J316 levels are poorly understood a lot of the times. The terms ADAS and autonomous are used a lot, and they've been specifically deprecated in that J316 document. So it's tough. It's tough for the general public. It's tough for industry. So we need to get our act together on the industry side. There are, depending on the manufacturer and the feature type, widely varying safety impacts. They're not all created equal. So for example, automatic emergency braking is better in some vehicles than it is in others. And so we think that it has promising, it'll have a promising impact, or it does, but we don't know that nuance between manufacturers. The consumers have a poor understanding of these technologies. Like I said, there isn't a lot of education that goes into the consumers once they buy these vehicles. And that's really something that we need to address and get them to not just become familiar with it, but understand it better and make use of it. So they get those benefits. Finally, active safety and level 1, level 2 deployments are only going to increase. I think that's clear. There's no stopping those. They are just, if you buy a new vehicle, you're going to probably get level 2. Definitely, you're going to get active safety, and that's just going to grow pretty dramatically over the next few years. On the other hand, the level 4 automated vehicle deployments seem to be slowing a bit. There have been bankruptcies and some consolidation, and then we saw the Cruise pause. So we may be in that trough of disillusionment on the Gartner hype cycle. Hopefully we can get up to that slope of enlightenment and get these more deployments and get the benefits from them. As I said, there's very little regulation. My research group is working on some best practices that I will toss over to myself, over the fence to myself on the standards committee, and hopefully get that into a regulation. But we need that federal regulation to really help the manufacturers, but help the general public see all the benefits that these technologies promise. And I'll just finish off by saying they seem to be useful, both these active safety and driving automation features for improving road safety, but that's not proven. We need to improve both the technology and the understanding of the technology for the foreseeable future. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. We'll turn to Mayor Harkey, a world leader.
I don't know how many questions I have, but just some comments related to the same. I know Chandler has been a very early adopter when our former Governor Ducey invited autonomous vehicles into Arizona. They settled into our community. And I remember one morning at a restaurant early on, when I looked out the window, I saw about in the span of a half hour, probably 7 Waymos driving by, mapping our streets. And I've been an early adopter in terms of their rider program. And I remember a couple other side benefits that we received out of them, as they were the ones that informed us when a traffic sign had been stolen. And it showed up on their cameras that there should have been a stop sign in one place. So they informed us. And another time we had a bike collision, not with Waymo, but we were able to ascertain that they had been in the area. And because of the nature of this situation, gave us access to their cameras. And while we're unable to get a clear ID on a license, but they were able to identify where the vehicle that had hit the cyclist had been and where it was going. And so that was helpful in the process of trying to tie this down. So Mayor Peterson and I are scheduling a date to drive to MAG and taking a Waymo. And this morning we had separate time schedules that did not allow that. But I was really excited when their span was more than just the novelty of driving around my community, but actually being able to connect with light rail or now to the airport or here. So in January, let's do it, Mayor Peterson. And I hope that we get through that trough of discouragement and back onto enlightenment and continued. I think the technology will benefit our community and allow us to continue to be a leader, the greater Phoenix area, in many other ways in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. I completely agree. Thank you for your leadership. Chandler was one of the first places that Waymo was testing. The block system, wide streets, good infrastructure has really allowed some of the companies to come and test here first. Arizona has been a long time testing place for the automotive community, and now with that infrastructure, we continue to be there for the automated vehicles. What you said was very interesting, that we definitely that's one way to get to keep the automated vehicle community in good stead, to work with the first responders, work with the cities, so that we're not at cross purposes. We want them to be deployed, but we also can get help from them in some things that they can see that our cities can't.
Mayor Peterson.
I was going to say, thank you, Mayor Harkey. I probably will have to drive to Chandler to join you for that ride, but I'm happy to do that. It would have been fun if it was for today, though. Thank you.
True.
Supervisor Sellers.
Yeah, just a quick comment. When the announcement was made by Waymo in Chandler, I was vice mayor. And I was asked to introduce Governor Ducey. And I said, yes, I'll do that. And I will be the second non-Waymo employee to ride in a Waymo vehicle. And I accomplished that.
Excellent. And I guess I should mention, as you both mentioned, Governor Ducey, the Institute of Automated Mobility was stood up in 2018. This is a research institute of which I'm a part, that's under the Arizona Commerce Authority, led by Marisa Walker as the executive director. And we're doing a lot of good work helping to bring these vehicles to public roads.
And then President Javier, I believe that you have had automated vehicles doing grocery delivery. And I think that made you the first tribal community to have a large scale autonomous vehicle program. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure. Hopefully everybody can hear me, but just listening to the discussion here, I'm just grateful for all the information that's being shared on this autonomous vehicle. Yes, you're correct. Here in the community, I want to say it was back in 2021, the community council agreed for a pilot project here with the company Cruise. And it is to provide grocery service to the surrounding area. Council gave that approval, and it was for at the time for semi-autonomous. There was always somebody in the vehicle, and I believe it was in 2023 where Cruise made the request to go fully autonomous, which they were operating fully autonomous until the incident that happened in California. And from my understanding, as mentioned, I think Cruise is kind of on pause, making sure everything is safe and operating those vehicles. Our other relationship we have, and I think discussions are still going, is with Waymo coming out into the community. And that just started earlier this year. I believe it was in early June, I think, of 2023 with Waymo. And that's really provide ride sharing services to individuals to certain parts of our community. And, that's important to us as a community, especially, operating a clinic here that provides services to Native Americans throughout the metro area. And it just provides, hopefully, in moving forward, if that option's available, it just provides an opportunity for transportation to get those patients to our clinic here to receive those services. So, yeah. So currently, our relationship has been with Cruise and with Waymo here in our community.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. I think that there are lots of different use cases. You mentioned one, the grocery delivery. So that's one different use case for automated vehicles. It's not always bringing passengers in a robotaxi service. There's also freight and drone operations as well. So lots of different use cases on that.
And a question for President Javier: how did it go with Cruise, and do you think it improved access to healthy food?
Well, I think it provides that service for, I'm assuming, people that don't have transportation to get to the supermarkets. Eventually we're hoping, because right now it's providing the service off the community. And I think that's the discussion we're going forward, is hopefully improving our infrastructure inside of our community to allow that service to our membership that want to use that service, for example, grocery delivery or ride sharing, whatever it might be. So, that's what we hope going forward, that this will eventually come to.
Fabulous. Thank you. And
Thank
good
you.
luck. President Javier had mentioned the medical service, and we heard from our AIDS clinic that their patients really enjoyed using Waymo. Sometimes they feel there's some judgment from human drivers when getting dropped off at the clinic that they did not see from an autonomous vehicle. Supervisor Sellers.
A quick question. I also serve on a study group of state air mobility. Do you have any, excuse me, do you have any involvement with that?
Not a whole lot at this point. I think those operations, that use case will come. I think we're seeing there's a lot of excitement in that area, but there's a lot of work to be done, and they're going to have to work with the FAA, which is a very different regulator than NHTSA. So that's going to be challenging, but I think it's only a matter of time.
Well, exactly. And our presenters there said that there are places that are going to implement this as soon as 2027.
Mm-hmm.
One of the presenters at our last meeting was Boeing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're actively involved in this.
Yeah, I was at a presentation from Honeywell the other day, and he showed a slide with some 30 companies involved in this, and they're all trying to get through FAA certification, and so on the eVTOL side, and then some of those will be automated. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely an idea whose time will come soon.
Well, thank you. Unless we have anyone online with additional comments. Well, thank you to Vladimir and Doctor. Thank you for the great presentation. We'll look forward to seeing more work ahead.
Thank you very much.
Item 7 is the 2003 annual report on the status of the implementation of Proposition 400. Mr. Zerker, can you introduce the item?
Thank you, Chairman Gallego and members of the committee. I think one thing that maybe bridges last item and this item is something I also want to talk more about next year, which is safety. The issue of roadway and pedestrian safety is one that's growing in importance in the United States. And unfortunately, the Maricopa County region is among the leaders in a bad way in terms of safety for pedestrians particularly. And so there are things that we want to talk about. I know individual cities are really doing a lot of active work in that area. And the issue of automated vehicles as it relates to safety, I think, is really important. Also, a part of Proposition 400, our next item, is with roadway safety, and this council has been very far-seeing in 479 having even more emphasis on safety. But to the moment here, we have Steph Stearns, who is a mag transportation analyst. She's here to present to you something that is important for at least two reasons. The first is that state law requires this. So we all, and as you know, we all take oaths to uphold the Constitution and follow the laws. And this is one of those laws we're following, which is that we need to present every year a report on Proposition 400. So this is actually the 18th one of these, 19th perhaps?
The 19th.
19th one of these reports. And so it's important for that. The other reason it's important is because it has a lot of information that I think can be used in your individual community when you get that inevitable question of, so what did this do for us? And that is contained in here. We will make these available to you. They're available online, but you can have a hard copy for yourself as well. But Steph has done a lot of work on this, and I want to turn it over to her to give you an overview of what's in this document and then answer any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you, Ed, and good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This item is just for information and discussion. Like Ed said, the report is done according to state statute. It addresses the project status, financing, and outlook for implementation for the 3 modal life cycle programs. Those are the freeway life cycle, the arterial life cycle, and the transit life cycle program. One of the things that the report does is it looks at revenue projections for both half-cent sales tax funds and federal funds that support the Prop 400 program. So shown here on the screen are the half-cent sales tax projections through the remainder of the Prop 400 program. Future half-cent revenues are projected to come in approximately at $2 billion over the remainder. And you'll see on the bar chart on the screen, these projections are a little bit higher than the same time period from last year. Moving on to federal funds. Federal funds are projected to come in at approximately $687 million over the lifetime of the program. And I'll point out the pie chart on the screen here. You see FTA formula and FTA discretionary. That's the Federal Transit Administration. It's a pretty large chunk of our funding. And that is because the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or the IIJA, provided historic increases to FTA funds nationwide. So we're then seeing that reflected in our federal funds in the region. I'll then touch on each of the modal life cycle programs, beginning with the Freeway Life Cycle Program. A number of projects were completed and underway. Some of the highlights of completed projects include I-10 from SR 85 to Verrado, the 202 and Lindsay Road interchange, and then SR 24 Ellsworth to Ironwood. A number of projects are also underway, some notable ones including the Broadway Curve and then the 43rd and 51st Avenue interchanges up by the TSMC development. Moving on to the Arterial Life Cycle Program, a number of projects were underway, completed, or advertised for bid, many more than are shown on the screen. This is just a highlight of a few. 2 of the projects that were completed are the Dysart Road and El Mirage Road overpasses on the Northern Parkway. That's the top photo on the screen. And then we also had the Southern Avenue and Stapley Drive intersection project in Mesa, which is shown on the bottom photo of the screen. And then moving on to the Transit Life Cycle Program, which is really split between bus and rail. On the bus side, for the past fiscal year, we saw extensions of Route 61 and Route 77. And I'll just note that these are Prop 400 routes, not including routes that are funded by City of Phoenix or by local dollars only. And then 124 vehicle purchases. This includes expansion buses in the system, replacement vehicles for both the bus and the paratransit side. And then moving on to the rail side of things, we saw a few projects that were underway, notably of which are the South Central Extension and Downtown Hub project, as well as the Northwest Extension Phase 2. So then I will zoom out and talk about the accomplishments of Prop 400 as a whole, not just fiscal year 2023, but since the program's inception. So there have been 422 quarter miles of freeway highway projects that total $7.89 billion with a B, invested. On the arterial side, that's 252 quarter miles of arterial projects, totaling just over $1.1 billion invested. And then on the transit side, 118 million bus transit revenue miles, which total 5.22 billion invested. This includes both federal funds as well as half-cent sales tax. And then looking forward, MAG staff will continue to review our program cost estimates. We'll make adjustments as needed. And as Ed mentioned, we have Prop 479 on the ballot next November, which we look forward to. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Questions or comments?
Oh, and I would like to also note, Madam Chair, we do have copies of the report, like Ed said. So if anyone wants one, maybe give a little hand raise, and I'll make sure you leave with a copy or copies today.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of people who have better commutes thanks to these investments. Wonderful. Thanks, Steph, for the update.
Madam Chair,
Please go ahead.
this is Mayor Hall. I had a question on federal funds. On page 17 of the presentation, it talks about ADOT funds, and then it's got parentheses, includes HERF and federal. So what is the breakout? She said the federal funds were 687 million. So now this is what's been spent for the whole flight of Proposition 400. So it's 4.120.6 billion. But how much of that is federal funds? Is it the 687.4?
Madam Chair, Mayor Hall, this is John Bolin.
Hey, John.
On page 24 of the annual Prop 400 report, you can see the specific breakdown between federal funding and highway user revenue funding. Just a quick note, the vast majority of the ADOT funds, quote unquote, are comprised of federal funding that's made available to the state. As we all know, and as you guys know locally, Highway User Revenue Fund, HERF, is a diminishing fund source.
Right.
And the vast majority of that is federal funding made available to the state.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, John.
And we think mega grants may come out in the next week, possibly. So perhaps we will have some good news for I-10. All right. Well, thank you again, Steph.
Thank
and
you.
now we will go on to item 8, the regional coordination of Rio Reimagined. Mr. Zerker, will you introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to turn this item over to actually Deputy Director Amy St. Peter, who has given great leadership to this within MAG. I know working closely with our member cities and Native nations who are part of the Rio Reimagined group, and she has guests with us here to introduce and a presentation. Amy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ed. And thank you, Chair and members of the MAG Regional Council for this opportunity. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide an update on the activities of Rio Reimagined, and also to introduce 2 new experts who have joined this effort and who are supporting Rio on that regional basis. We are excited for this conversation and really look to your leadership to help us fully realize and achieve the full benefits of Rio, not just for the communities in that river corridor, but for the entire region as well. As background, of course, late Senator McCain started to champion these efforts back in 2017 as an effort to protect and revitalize the river corridor and the communities alongside it. In 2018, the communities along the corridor signed an agreement as a way to work together in support of Rio Reimagined. Tyler, next slide, please. So you'll see the communities who are located in that river corridor. In addition, ASU and SRP signed on in 2018 as partners in this very important effort. All of these members then comprise the advisory group, and the advisory group is overseeing the activities of our ambassador here at MAG. Cindy Patak will be talking about her role as the ambassador momentarily, and Maggie will be joining us in just a moment as well to talk about the very important role that ASU plays in all of these efforts. While this is very much a place-based initiative, we see benefits for the entire region as a whole. And in particular, when you look at areas along the corridor that are maybe a bit more developed, you see visitors coming in not just from throughout the region, but also beyond. And so we see that there are economic benefits, community benefits, environmental benefits that really do extend throughout the region. When you look to sister projects like this across the country, you can get a sense for the potential that we have here locally. So for example, the San Antonio Riverwalk offers a number of benefits on a very broad scale. We can achieve that as well by focusing more intently on the regional impact through Rio Reimagined. This corridor is, of course, very diverse and rich in cultural heritage. We very much want to honor the history as we work to improve the future of the corridor and the communities alongside it. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So MAG, ASU, and Greater Phoenix Leadership are working very intentionally together to coordinate our activities to serve the communities in that corridor. MAG has always been supportive of this effort, but we've more recently taken on a more defined role by hosting the ambassador, Cindy, and by hosting the advisory group. We're also very excited to leverage the expertise of our MAG staff. There are many intersections between MAG's work here as a regional planning agency for the area and for Rio Reimagined. For example, transportation includes active transportation, and that includes trails. And there's high interest in trails along the river corridor. Also looking at our environmental programs, such as the Rose Work Group, and even human services, because homelessness at times is present in that river corridor, and we need to address it, and we need to be very proactive in that effort. And so we're excited to be able to lend our efforts to this. ASU, of course, has played a leadership role in this space since Senator McCain asked President Crow to help shepherd these efforts moving into the future. They work with a wide variety of stakeholders through the Rio Partnership, and Maggie will be providing additional details in just a moment. Greater Phoenix Leadership may have been reaching out to you as communities as well. They are looking for names of people who can serve on the board of a new nonprofit that they're starting to support Rio. That nonprofit will really help to incentivize and to facilitate private sector involvement, as well as the philanthropic funding that will be so critical to those projects moving forward. They're also in a great position to help out with any advocacy that might be needed throughout the way. So all three entities then are working together, but all of our work really depends on what the local community's priorities are. We're listening intently, and we want to be able to help coordinate to achieve greater regional impact. This is a primary focus of our ambassador. And at this point now, I'd like to turn it over to Cindy to talk about her role as the ambassador and the overall goals of Rio Reimagined. Cindy?
Cindy, just before you start, Supervisor Sellers.
Yeah, I just want to mention that I was very pleased that we had a roundtable recently in Tempe that was headlined by Senator Sinema, and very pleased that she caused some renewed awareness of the importance of this project. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor, Chair, and members of the Regional Council. And the county is very much a great partner in this space. And we are very thankful to Senator Sinema. She and Senator Kelly have been national leaders in the Urban Waters Federal Partnership Program. And that is a program that Cindy can talk to as well. There are 21 locations across the country within that program. Our state, though, is very much at the forefront in terms of advocating at that national basis to support this program as a whole. That benefits our work here, and it also helps the other 20 sites that are across the country. Thank you. Any other questions before we transition to Cindy? Thank you. Cindy?
Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon, Chair Gallego and council members. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Rio Reimagined partnership, because it is a partnership, as Amy alluded to, and it really is a partnership that's been working together for years. So while my position is new, my role really is to kind of galvanize those efforts, to kind of take a look at them from a higher perspective, from a regional perspective, and see where there's some intersectionality there and some where we have an opportunity to make some regional impact. The focus of my position as ambassador here for Rio is really to bring federal funding in. And that's one of the reasons that we're working so closely together to kind of look at the projects and to listen to what your priorities are, and to see how we can connect them directly to federal funding. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, as Amy alluded to, this position is one of the benefits of becoming part of the Urban Waters program. It is hosted by the EPA, and it is a designation. We are the Urban Waterways, part of the 21 nationwide network. And along with federal funding, it also really kind of taps us into a national network of colleagues that are working on very similar issues across the country. So besides the federal funding and some of the funding that we see here up on the screen, I think it's really so important that we're tapping into that national database of information so that we can start to see how that plays out in our region, and that will help us become more competitive as well. I want to speak a little bit to our co-sharing agreement. As we know, this is an investment not just by the federal government, but by the communities in the corridor itself. And you can see by the numbers on the screen that the commitment is really there by these communities and by the federal government to work together. And really, my role is really kind of being a sounding board and also that listening board, so that as we develop relationships with those 15 federal partners, they'll know exactly who Rio is. They'll know exactly the type of projects that we're looking to fund. And then we can bring those opportunities back to our communities and really start to put together applications in seeking those federal funds so that we start to see an impact at the local level and with the people that live here in the corridor itself and for the region as a whole. And so again, I am really working on behalf of the advisory group. The position description is very, very specific and is a creation of the advisory group. I take that very seriously. And it's just been a pleasure. We've met with a few of you already, and we will continue to do that and forge those relationships and continue our work in that regard. I want to introduce you to Maggie. She'll speak a little bit more in depth about the partnership itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Chair and members of the Regional Council. My name is Maggie Sofel. I work for Arizona State University, the University City Exchange Office. In the last 5 to 6 years, our office has really formed a robust and diverse partnership of organizations that are invested in the revitalization of the river corridor. This includes public agencies, private sector partners, nonprofits, and community-based organizations. The federal, state, county, city, and tribal partners really form the leadership backbone of this initiative. And the many other organizations listed here are just a small sampling of the representation within the partnership. These are organizations that are all actively involved in projects along the corridor, ranging from redevelopment of brownfield parcels to heat mitigation projects and recreational access. The list goes on. These are all entities that would be involved in community engagement in any regional scale planning process. And our office works to convene this partnership on a bi-monthly basis to share their work. All the partners share their work. We bring in speakers from other watersheds across the country, and we share upcoming river events and resources for the partners. We use this partnership in part to recognize that our region will gain more by working together to define the Rio Reimagine, securing larger federal resources, state resources, and having a larger impact. Next slide, please. So over the last 5 years, Rio has really been in this sort of startup mode for an initiative that will take decades to actualize. As most of you know, and as has been described before, in 2017, Senator McCain tasked ASU with being the facilitator convener for this effort. And in 2008, the statement of intent was signed by the 6 cities, the 2 tribes, the county, and SRP, which Amy mentioned is a commitment really to realize the river corridor as a regional landmark for the valley. In the first 2 years of this effort, our office really worked to strengthen relationships with our federal agency partners and our delegation. We brought in speakers from other river revitalization initiatives across the country to meet with our expanding partnership. In 2019, we received a unanimous federal delegation letter of support for inclusion in the Urban Waters Federal Partnership Program out of the EPA, for which Cindy is our local primary contact. In 2020, we formally received designation in that program, and leaders in the Valley began more coordinated focus on the corridor, led by Mayor Gallego with her Rio Advisory Council and Greater Phoenix Leadership's Rio Task Force. In 2021, the partnership continued to expand with more engagement by our nonprofit and community-based partners, and grant funding continued to increase in 2022 for projects along the corridor. In the last 3 to 4 years alone, grants to Rio partners total over $30 million. Of that, $25 million is attributed to the US DOT funding for the City of Phoenix's 3rd Street Bridge project, and many other local projects ranging from water quality, urban forestry, local food systems, habitat restoration, the list goes on and on. This year in 2023, we've entered a new phase of Rio, which has begun with expanded professional capacity, multi-organizational leadership, and an emphasis on federal funding opportunities. And I'm going to hand it back over to Amy to talk about what comes next.
Thank you very much. So Chair and members of the MAG Regional Council, what we're doing right now is that we're meeting with the advisory group members collectively and individually. Collectively, it's really important to have those conversations and so that the communities can share with each other what their priorities are, what their interests are, what their needs are. We're also meeting with each member on an individual basis and with your leadership to have those conversations about what are the priorities that can be elevated then to that regional focus. How can we work together better together then and what can we achieve together that we aren't able to achieve as well on our own? So those conversations are really critical. We'll be starting to identify those synergies among projects and working with the advisory group members then to identify what are the aspects of the regional vision that we most want to lean into right now and really to work hand in glove with you on achieving that and bringing in the federal funding as well as other funding sources that will be so critical to the success of that implementation. And so as we move forward then, we do look forward to continuing this conversation with you, and we thank you as well for your support in terms of MAG playing a greater role in the regional coordination of these efforts. There's a lot that's going on at MAG that intersects very nicely with Rio, and if we're coordinating really well, we'll just achieve better results. So thank you for your support. We encourage you to reach out to us. So far in the conversations that we've held, some of the things that are rising to the top, there's a lot of interest in completing that trail system along the river corridor, as well as in building that regional vision for the entire corridor. We think that we'll be more successful in funding those larger scale projects that will be poised to have a greater impact for the entire corridor as well as for the region. This does conclude our presentation, but hopefully not the dialogue. We are excited for any questions or feedback that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Wonderful. Well, I think this is a legacy project for Senator McCain, but so many others. The Valley exists because of this riverfront in many ways. And so hopefully we can make this a even bigger point of pride. So Cindy, excited to have you and appreciate all the ASU partnership and look forward to more updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now the executive director's report.
What everyone's been waiting for.
The highlight of the meeting starts
right.
now.
I would say one important thing about the Rio ambassador at MAG is the connection between transportation and Rio is going to be important, particularly on the west side as the SR30 interacts with the Rio Salado corridor. And so the ability to have the transportation planning connected with our partners at ASU, GPL, and together with MAG is going to be very important, particularly in the development of the SR30. But as it relates to the executive director's report, this is our last meeting of the year. So we release you all for winter break after this from your MAG responsibilities. Just a few things to go over. First of all, there's a member service is with the possibilities of the Infrastructure and Jobs Investment Act. We have put together at MAG a new feature of the Transportation Improvement Program webpage for your staff so they can get the latest information on federal discretionary grant opportunities. As Mayor Gallego noted, mega grants are coming soon and there are going to be more discretionary grants. So this is actually a resource for your agency staff so that we can continue to bring new transportation dollars to the region. Second thing to cover, I was honored to participate in the latest webinar in a series hosted by ULI Arizona and ASU Morrison Institute. This is a continuation of the Regional Council's adopted Pathways Home program on housing and homelessness. These efforts continue and are continuing to further the work of Pathways Home. A couple of weeks ago, I joined Jessica Mefford Miller from Valley Metro, Steve Boshin from ADOT, and Julie Cruz from Governor Hobbs's office in a forum moderated by Dana Paschke, who previously was our representative here at MAG, at the Women's Transportation Seminar panel on Prop 479. This was, I think, the first panel where there was actually an official name given to Prop 400 extension, 479. We were able to talk there. Supervisor Sellers was present and was able to, in his role as an elected official, make a pitch that others of us as appointed officials are not able to make about the importance of Prop 479. And so I think this was just the first of many types of opportunities where we're going to have to talk to public members about what 479 means, what it is, and where we're headed with that. So we want to thank the Arizona Transit Association and Friends of Transit who sponsored the event, and Supervisor Sellers for being at the event and sort of stealing the show with his speech. It was great. The WTS members were really appreciative of his attendance. Following up on something we've seen before here, Brad Williams has been featured in several media pieces covering the I-10 tunnel to split study. Regional Council heard this presentation back in September. As many of you may have experienced on your way here today, the I-10 segment from the tunnel to the I-17 by the airport through 51 and 202 interchanges is the busiest section of freeway in the region and in the state. And so we've gotten a lot of media coverage on our efforts to kick off the planning. I'd encourage, if you haven't today or tomorrow's the last day, go to the MAG webpage. Right on the page there is a link to the survey. It's interesting to see how the survey is structured, in that it is interactive for people to give their own ideas. You can actually go and click on a spot, perhaps where you had a near miss, and say, as I said, I don't like how the lane drops just before Sky Harbor, or whatever it may be. And those are all recorded there on the website. But it's actually a good example of an interactive survey instrument. For something a little more serious, the federal government, and a couple of you have asked about this, the federal government, the EPA, is changing its regulations on particulate matter smaller than 2.5, I think it's microns, but it's called PM 2.5, in a way that is going to affect us. Now, this is 2 or 3 years down the road, but this is what has happened, is that EPA announced earlier this year proposed rulemaking to strengthen the air quality standard for PM 2.5. Official comments were due to EPA by March 28th. They have just now come out with a change to the regulations. And these are small particulates that include anything that disturbs the soil, called fugitive dust, combustion from engines. It's from wood burning, fireworks that we see around the holidays are all part of the PM 2.5 issue. Within Maricopa and Pinal, there are 4 monitors that would be now violating the proposed annual standard of 10 micrograms. So they're lowering the standard on 2.5. It is a health-based standard. So according to EPA, it is about responding to what science says about health. The final rule we expect to come out soon. It will affect our air quality work here at MAG. It has a lead time of probably 2 to 3 years for it really to take effect, but it is another one of those things that we're going to have to pay attention to. We've done a great work on PM10 here in the region. You all, your communities, been part of that. We've done great work on 2.5, and now the standard is lowering, and so we're going to have to go back to our efforts on PM 2.5. Also, in the area of air quality and environment, the CPRG, which is a climate pollution reduction grant, that is the program Regional Council authorized us to take the lead on as MAG. It's an application we made to be the planning agency for a regional CPRG. Having a regional CPRG will allow all member agencies to compete for over $4 billion in EPA grants over the next several years. That deadline for that grant submittal is March 1st. And so our staff are really working hard to get the grant put together and submitted to the EPA so that member agencies can submit for the grant program. Part of this is developing the plan that we are hosting 4 open houses throughout the metropolitan area in December. Not the greatest time to do it, but because of the short timeline on the EPA grant, we just had to press ahead. So we have 4 open houses that are being held throughout the region. 1 in Pinal County, 1 in Phoenix. I'm forgetting my other 2, Audra. Oh, it's on the slide? Okay, if I read my own slide. There we go. Glendale, Cesar Chavez Community Center at 35th Avenue and Baseline in Phoenix, Eloy City Hall for Pinal County, and on the east side, Mesa Community College. Those are our events to gain input from the public. But probably more importantly, again, on the MAG website, there is a survey instrument that we're pushing out to as many people as possible. We've asked your staff to help us push that to your environmental committees Many of you have groups that you connect with to get as many and as diverse of views as possible into what should be in this plan that is available to the public at azmag.gov. It is on the homepage. One of the 2 surveys that is up on the homepage right now, in addition to the I-10, is the CPRG. So any help you can give in pushing the survey out to your interested folks would be very much appreciated by our staff. With that, I want to talk about something else that this is happening this year, and that is this is the 50th year as MAG as an MPO. Now, you'll remember we had a 50-year celebration back in 2017 for MAG. MAG actually began as a council of governments in 1967 when the cities got together and said we need to do regional planning in air quality, in solid waste, in water quality, and in building specs, in the specs that are put out across the region. Those efforts all continue at MAG. But in 1973, MAG was designated as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is an official designation for the U.S. Department of Transportation, and now takes a great deal of what goes on at MAG is done from that designation that happened by the governor 50 years ago. So 2023 marks another birthday for MAG in terms of being an MPO. In some regions, the Council of Governments and the MPO are separate organizations. It's a little clumsy. Fortunately, here in our region, we've put those two things together. They do 2 different things. You've put them together so we're not duplicating efforts on that. Finally, in this holiday season of gratitude, I'd just like to conclude our year with you to express appreciation, first of all, to you all, our local leaders who have seen this very challenging year through, but with success. Particularly the biggest thing we were focused on this year, Prop 479 being placed on the ballot. If you think about where you were in January and where you are today, that's a hill you've climbed. And we thank you for leading us up that hill and through all the difficulties. I know that none of you get elected thinking that you're going to serve on MAG and how exciting it is to come to MAG meetings, right? That's not why you ran for mayor or supervisor, but that came with the job, and you've showed up and done the work, and we really thank you for doing that. I'd also like to thank our member agency city managers and intergovernmental representatives who slogged their way through this year with us on all the stuff that we've got to get done, the guidance and the time they give. And just finally, at the end, I want to recognize MAG staff who make these meetings work. We don't always see them. And actually, the fact that we don't see and pay attention to the MAG staff of the meetings is often a good thing. It means things are going right. But I just want to recognize a few people here just for putting the meeting together. Amy, Audra, Andrea, Destiny, Chantel, and Sepna, who are here. Wave your hands, say hi. The IT folks, Tyler, who's running controls, and we always turn and look at him if something doesn't happen on the screen. But also Audrey, David, and Craig are often here doing things. For public comment, our communication staff, Kelly, Juan, and Jeff, they were actually disappointed because we had a new system for public comment today where it'll be more electronic, and then nobody came to use it. But we'll put something on in January that will bring them all out, and we'll get to use them. And finally, for the most important thing, food and logistics, I want to thank our team behind the scenes. You see them, sometimes sometimes you don't. Constance, Kathleen, Terry, and Angie make sure that we all have a room that's appropriately set and you have food and you're greeted when you come in and everything. So I want to say thank you to all those folks too. But with that, happy 2023 and early happy 2024. We look forward to seeing you next year.
Well, a wonderful report. Thank you. And if anyone has questions for Ed, you can see him after the meeting. We got Mayor Peterson and Mayor Harkey have their autonomous vehicle resolution already. We're going into 2024 with great momentum, and I hope it will be a wonderful year for MAG. Legislative update. Do we have a legislative update?
The legislature is coming back in January. We do have a legislative lobbying firm, which is Tri-Advocates. You all approved that. Or that was approved, I think, by the executive committee earlier this month. So you will see a new set of folks working with us at the legislature that will come from the group Tri-Advocates. Thank you, Mayor.
Request for future agenda items. Comments from the committee. The next regional council will be on Wednesday, January